We have a guest who's joining us now in the studio. He is Professor Ngure wa Mwachofi. He is a consultant and a retired associate professor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you for having me here.
Welcome to the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Yes, I can feel the temperatures already. The heat is coming.
I like your fashion sense as well.
Yeah, I like colors. I'm an artist. I like music. And I walk around and hear, hey, Wajakoya. I tell them, no, Wajakoya is so much younger than me. Yeah, I think he copied from me, but
Copied from
it's
you.
okay.
Everything, your style.
Yeah,
Even the love for music.
the love for music.
He loves dancing.
I started playing guitar when I was quite young, from age 7 or so. But then, those days, the music industry was very smart. It would come and just give 50 bob down payment. And they went away with the copyright. So parents like my father, who loved their kids, they knew this is the wrong path to go. And so I always had, "Nikakubona na your guitar. If I see you with that guitar, you'll be in trouble." So I liked the sound, but I knew that that was it, just seeing it from a distance. Fortunately, my uncle, who was a teacher, had a guitar. And so I would sneak in there and try to do a few things here and there. Yeah.
And you play the guitar.
I'm not a music guy. I haven't learned to read those things. I just play by ear.
You just play.
By
Do you
ear.
compose as well?
Yeah. I want to compose more, but I want to do songs for Kenya to wake all of us up.
Right.
Mostly just to become more aware of why we are who we are.
Okay.
I'm a philosopher by tradition. I mean, that's what I've been trained on, but I have a very eclectic educational background. A BS in accounting, George Mason University, MA International Relations, Ohio University, and a PhD in communication. That is Ohio University.
Eclectic indeed.
Yes.
Wow.
So I've taught quite a wide range of classes I've taught in 4 universities.
Karibu sana.
Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio, USIU.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you retired.
When I retired.
Prof, welcome to the Situation Room. This
you.
man, Siti Muga, is also a mwalimu.
Mwalimu kama
Yeah.
mzuri sana.
With an eclectic taste of everything, including proverbs. Every day, he gives us a proverb from an African country.
Yes.
Wonderful.
This week, he's been giving us proverbs from Burkina Faso.
Yeah.
Yes. Ants, siafu, sio auntie, sio shangazi. Ants surround the dying elephant.
Ants surround the dying elephant.
Now you asked me a question, and I wanted to answer it comprehensively.
Okay.
When you ask who is the president of Burkina Faso, I have to just give you a 1-minute history.
Okay.
That whole region, West Africa and the Sahel, is actually being called the coup belt. Meaning the number of coups that have occurred, forget from 1960, just this century alone, they are very, very, very many. And there's a difference. There's usually a coup leader, and then there is a president. Okay? And oddly enough, it's only in Sudan where you hear of generals leading. In the other countries, there's a captain.
Is that lieutenant?
Yes, there's a colonel. That's probably the highest ranking person you'd hear. Yes, but the gentleman whose name you asked for is called Captain Ibrahim Traore.
He is the coup leader.
Yes.
He ousted a president.
Yes, he did.
Who is the president?
He's not the president anymore.
He is the president, bwana. See, we recognize democratically elected leaders in Africa, bwana. Sisi kama AU, bwana.
Wajua, the reason why I'm mentioning this, you're asking who he ousted. Yule ambaye alitolewa akaambiwa, you go home. He's not the president.
Okay.
Ibrahim is the president.
Ibrahim is the leader.
If you ask me who the former president was, I would be able to respond appropriately. But who is the president? That's the president. If you ask me, for instance, now, who is the president of Mali? Well, what will I tell you? Alpha Conde.
Boss,
So,
I see your political affiliation and inclination. Ni sawa.
you've got my point?
Well, I can
You've
see.
got my point.
I can see.
Yes.
Okay.
Ants surround the dying elephant.
Ants surround the dying elephant. Prof, when you hear this proverb, What do you think the Burkinabe are saying?
I think what they're saying is that Siafu, being very smart, they know where the food is, and there's no resistance from a dead elephant or a dying elephant. We have a similar proverb actually in Kitaita, which is it's about the ticks that stick on a. They have such loyalty that even when the bull is dying, they stick on it. It goes something like, it's Mwakimora. Mwakimora is the color of the bull. It's the way it is described in my mother tongue. And the bull is dying, but the tick keeps on saying, no, I am going to be right there until it is buried with the bull.
Say it in Kitaita.
Yeah. So Mwakimora, it is said as if it's a dialogue. Mwakimora Mwakimora njawe ewafo. I indaka na njao yapo. No, I'll stick with my njao. So this idea
of njao is the bull.
Yeah.
All right.
And I think that the idea of Siafu on a Zingira elephant, that seems to be very similar. And probably you can extend this in our social context. When you think of how metaphorical language is, it must be telling us that people like to surround whoever they think they can eat from, even if that person is dying, and if he's dying, even better, because they can control everything. Yeah.
They will eat without question.
Yeah, will eat without question.
Right.
No resistance.
Interesting. Before we move into the conversation, you've said something interesting. So in Kitaita, njao is a bull.
Yes.
What do you call a calf in Kitaita?
Ngombe.
So ngombe is a calf.
Yeah. Oh, did you say calf?
Yes.
Oh, a calf is ngache.
Ngache.
Yeah.
Ngache is a calf.
Yeah.
Ngombe is cow.
Is the general name
for cattle.
Yeah. And then
njao is the bull.
Yeah.
In many other Bantu tribes.
And if it has been castrated, it is mbiria.
Mbiria.
Yeah.
You know that Bantu tribes, njao is a calf.
Well, we have quite a few differences, and sometimes it would be the same word but different names.
Njao, nzao is a calf.
Like the beard in Kitaita is, we call it...
Ndevu.
No, we call it, it is ndevu, yes, but we say sombe. Yeah. Now, sombe is a word that refers to the whisker that Jomo tends to,
You said you like conscious music.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just play music and you want to awaken people.
Yes.
And Kenyans.
In fact, sometimes it's not so much as spoken, but even the sounds. Because the sounds, they organize the mind in a particular form. And when you look at aesthetics, you know, if I could demonstrate, would you like me to demonstrate?
Yes.
The way music works for me is that it organizes the mind. The same way language works, and the music is language. It organizes the mind in the sense that we have a mood set. If I take this example here, and I'm playing, say, jifunze mengi ya dunia na pendo langu na kwambia, ili upate kujua, ewe wangu, barua nilikutumia, ujifunze ya dunia, usije ukaangamia, ewe wangu. Now you can hear what I'm doing here is I'm actually offering sentences that are meant to organize the mind, and you are being told you need to learn more about the world because we live in a world of knowledge, and the more you know, the more likely you are to make the right decisions. Now, this was being done in an A minor key, and so the mood is actually very somber in the sense that it's a serious matter as opposed to... You can see this was fast, but it was fast in the sense that it introduced a different mood altogether. It was clearly supposed to be joyful.
Kabisa.
So that's how music, in my view, works. And I think it's so powerful because it has so much subtlety. If I was thinking about something and I decided to play, I would be creating the sounds on the spur of the moment. Maybe I can do that when we are getting done.
As we continue the conversation.
To think about the mood.
You'll come up with something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Observing the country and what's happening in the country. We wanted to have a conversation with you about looking at our leaders, looking at what we always say is a scourge in this country, corruption.
Yeah.
What's your view on this?
Well, I think when we talk about anything, in that process we are constructing that thing. It's like the artist who is drawing a picture, and the moment they do a line, that line speaks to them and it tells them what to do next. So my major interest in the way we talk about corruption is that we tend to continue to affirm the reality of corruption, but we rarely assign why it is there. In other words, in philosophical terms, we need to say there is this element and it works in this form. The reason it is there. If our desire to talk about corruption is so we can end corruption, it seems to me that we should really be interested in organizing that topic in ways that are not just simple binary logic of blaming. And so I remember I wrote an article, actually it was in the Standard. The last debate in 2013, I think it was February the 26th, I talked about what the presidential debate missed. And what it missed for me was the major missing element was corruption. And I went ahead to explain the sense of how I saw corruption in Kenya compared to how I saw it in the US. And I think that the very discussion that we have here constantly is, there are these bad people, all they care is about themselves and so on and so on. But we don't realize that corruption is a manifestation of the state of the nation, what I call national consensus. Probably I'm lucky in that having been away from home for so long, as in the USA for 30 years, from 81 to 2011. And when you've been away, you can see the change the same way you see a child that you saw 5 years ago. You say, amekuwa mrefu sana. But the family members don't see that. So I think I got several shocks, and I continue to be shocked for the 11 years I've been back. And so the point I made about corruption was that the issue was missing because the question was asked and the two candidates answered and they just moved on. There was no follow-up. Like how, what are the major factors? It was simply, if I am hired, I'll make sure I end corruption. And so the problem then there is that corruption is conceptualized like it is an enemy, just like a snake comes into your house. The snake is in the house and nobody is killing it. Leader after leader, we are told about this corruption, but nobody goes to jail. So that's a problem.
You say it's a manifestation of something.
Yes.
You say national consensus.
Yes. When I'm talking about national consensus, I'm making the case that any country creates a language, and that language becomes the guide that makes people see things the way the way we see it. The reason we think of women as inferior to men is because our language, and if you follow through the analysis of language, you see that it's constantly maintaining that inferiority status to the extent that you can hear a woman say, I don't know what is wrong with my son. Every time I visit, he's the one cooking and his wife is just there. Yeah. And if you ask her, would you be happy if your husband was cooking for you? Yeah, but that's different. In other words, it hits them that they're actually affirming the same stereotypes. And she's a woman, but she's operating at the unconscious level.
So do you think that...
By this manifestation, I mean that when we operate in a manner we are not questioning anymore, we think we are just being innocent speakers, when essentially what we are doing is we are affirming those stereotypes. Yeah.
Sure. So if we're looking now to try and understand what's going on, because it really doesn't matter where you look today, you're going to find the manifestation of corruption.
True, indeed.
It's in conversation, it's in action, it's in everything.
Yes.
So is then the current state of corruption after habitual conditioning? Do you think, because if it's now in the language, it's in the action, conditioning?
It is pretty much like the example I gave of a lady who doesn't realize that she is talking about what's wrong with So in this case, we are looking at corruption, and I'm saying that most people are willing to do it, although they'll be speaking against it. I'll give you examples. One, police officers spend a whole day traffic, and Mr. X is newly hired, and he decides he's going to uphold the values, what he was sworn to, so he's not going to be receiving any money. And it will continue for probably first day, second day. In the evening, the friends say, Mr. Innocent, so what? Can I go and buy you a beer? I know you have no money. There's a very high chance that he might switch his allegiance to be part of the story. And when I talk to young people, they tell me, if you can't beat them, join them. That's a very easy way to say this is the way it is. Corruption is here to stay. My students tell me, when I was teaching, they'll tell me, Mwalim, corruption is here to stay. I asked a very interesting question in class one time. By show of hands, how many people would return a wallet that you picked on campus? You opened it, it was 40,000, and you took it to campus police, and you got it registered as an item that is returned with all the details. I looked around, and in a class of 66 students, only one person raised their hand. I say, so let me change the subject a little here. By show of hands, how many people will be happy if they went to the campus police to find out if their wallet has been found? And then it was found, and he opened, and they said 40,000. Everybody else's hands were up. I say we have just proven that we are very good pretenders. We live in a world where we know that corruption is there, and we are acting like it is not there, or we don't like it, but then we think we are clean. So I think that important self-reflection becomes key. And self-reflection dies when language becomes dominant, because when you are using language, you are no longer thinking about what am I saying. You are just using the words that are there. So you hear statements like, Kenya ina wenyewe. Kenya ina wenyewe means we are already saying we have surrendered to the idea that this is here to stay and there's nothing you can do. When people say, hakuna haja ya kupiga kura, they have understood that there is no need to vote. So the question then is, what is the use of having a political system where people actually don't care, and when they voted, they know it doesn't make a difference? And all that is corruption, because corruption really is the idea that when we have established what is right and we don't follow, we are corrupting that idea. When lights are green, you drive. When they are red, you stop. When you decide they are green or red, it doesn't matter. The question of whether you stop or not depends on what is convenient for you, and everybody does the same, then you realize selfishness is a permanent element. And so we can be talking of fighting it in the same manner that those police officers who just said, hey, Mr. Innocent, we can buy you beer, while they are sitting in bars and they're having conversations with friends, they'll be saying, sijui tutapata kiongozi gani atakuja kutuokoa. And kuokoa and changing the culture is everybody's responsibility. So leadership then becomes a very complex story. It's not so much as nimeamuru hivi, I've ordered this and all that. A leader will have to be the person who changes and introduces new ways of thinking about our nation, so that we become citizens who know what is right and what is wrong, and we live by that and feel very open to talk about what is wrong.
So are you therefore saying, Professor, that in everything that we do, you cannot underestimate the power of example?
Absolutely. Because even in language, you will learn by repetition. The more you repeat, the more it becomes reality. And so examples are, we have to walk the talk.
How is it then that when you talk about leadership at whatever form and at whatever level, are we hardwired to always look for guidance and look for individuals to follow?
No, I think that when people are looking for guidance, sometimes it is because they are escaping the responsibility. They prefer that somebody else will be the one making the decision. People will be feeling ashamed to call a spade, because if majority of the people are doing the same thing, you will feel like, let me be quiet. But if you stand by your words, I think you can change people's mind. For example, you have your friends coming and you are a very good cook, and your friends think you are not macho enough because you listen to your wife too much, and you are the one who cooked, yeah, and you have your apron on, the bell rings, hey, wait, let me get my apron off. So when they come in, you are there like, hi guys, welcome. Yeah. So this idea is very clear that you are on the one hand playing to the idea that you want your friends to see you as the macho person, the macho persona that has become your consensus among your friends. And now you know that is not really the right thing, but now you're going to have to pretend to go along.
It gets to the heart of why it is we seek approval from those we consider our peers and our friends, because that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
You want them to approve of you. Why is it important?
Yeah. Why is it important that they approve you?
Yes, approve of you.
It means that we lack a lot of confidence as people, and we are constantly disoriented about where we should be holding. Our anchors seem to be constantly floating. I want to be here, but people don't think this is right, so I'm not going to do that. When you look at me and I'm wearing a bandana, can you imagine how many people ask me questions about my bandana? I mean, how can it be so important? Yeah, then I have to tell them, well, bananas are very helpful. When you are sweaty, the sweat doesn't drip. And because it doesn't drip, it's good. When it is dusty, I take off the banana, I put it on there, and I'm breathing filtered air. Isn't that a good thing? And even better, when I'm in church, I walk in my bandana because I'm in the same class as the women who are wearing their bandanas. And I remember one time we went to a burial in Moktau, and as I saw the priest say, you cannot touch this coffin because of that thing. You are not respecting this person. And this was my uncle we were burying. So I was left there, the bad guy.
Because of your bandana?
Yeah, because of my bandana. And, you know, when they say, wanaume vueni kofia so people can pray, it's a show of respect, and I remain like that, some people looking at me like, you are embarrassing us.
But it's not hard.
Then you have relatives who actually say, this is my bandana, they just take it off. They are claiming it, not because they really want to claim it. They are feeling very ashamed that this is their cousin they are associated with and is wearing a bandana. And then I asked them, do you know Rick Nelson is a musician? He always wore a bandana, right? But who decides what is what? And this innovativeness, I think, is important. We can't kill it, because when we want people to be independent and make decisions that are useful, we are opening up to this idea that when we know things are right or they are wrong, we should stick to what we are seeing. And that when people can have that kind of debate, there'll be no longer the story of people just following whatever is popular without questioning.
I wanted to ask, see, there's a salient discussion that we're having here about conformity and non-conformity. Because it appears that we choose a path that is easier, and that is to conform.
True.
And so long as there are numbers attached to that conformity, then we will take the view that every other logic that subscribes to that subject will be set aside, and we'll believe that because many people believe it is so, even if we know it is wrong. Why do I say this? I say this because it's like a rush and a push and a stampede, not to conform, but to affirm. And there's that constant affirmation, which in and of itself is what tells you that there's a struggle people have with this issue. When you're at ease with something, you don't struggle.
Yeah.
But when you're constantly trying to prove the point, there's a struggle. And one has to ask, who are you struggling with? And essentially you're struggling with yourself, because what you're doing and what you know to be right are not the same thing.
Very true.
Yes.
Absolutely true. You go to a restaurant.
Yes.
Nataka chapati na nyama. Then suddenly you see somebody walking with a chapati with something. I think I should have ordered that. Which tells you we are constantly struggling with where to hold. And I think my anchor usually is when you are at peace with yourself, any place is home. But the key thing that we miss all the time is the major philosophical question. W-H-Y. Why? Why? And we don't like to deal with the whys because we prefer to stay on the symptom level. We are seeing there's a problem and we say, corruption iko. It's like living in a dirty house and then all of us agree, nyumba chafu sana, but I'm hoping you'll sweep. You're hoping she will sweep. And so it never gets swept. And we get angry and really affirm the idea that nyumba iko safi. That's what Kenya is.
So you're saying you don't want to deal with the reason that is causing this corruption. Why? Because if you do deal with it, then it'll disappear. So does that then mean that CT, after many years, could actually be right? That we enjoy the corruption. We like it. It's...
I think
it's beneficial in one way or another.
Yes, a good analogy will be the switch, the light switch. You turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off. So if something is good for you, let it flow. It's not good, you turn it. If it's making you feel embarrassed, you want to say, I was not part of this. Well, you are part of this. Actually, when we agreed.
In our instance, Professor, the turning on and off has to do with our going to church. The going to church is supposed to now show and demonstrate that we're actually not involved in you. Yes, because I go to church.
Yes,
and to make it better, I may even be an elder in the church. And just to sanctify myself further, I'll talk about how much I give, which I really shouldn't say if I'm to follow the dictates of that faith, but we will do.
You give while you are...
Yes.
You don't have to open your mouth and say, I can't.
Yes, essentially. Then come Monday, I go back to everything that I do.
Factory settings.
Yes, and then to sort of like give myself a little resetting, I have to go back to church so that I feel I am not as amoral or immoral as I actually know I am. But there's something that I've always found disturbing. It's something I debate with myself every day. When you do something which is wrong, just to put it simply, let's leave the word corruption aside. What does it do to you?
It removes the peace.
Yes. Something happens to you, the person.
Disrupts you. Yeah.
Yes, it disrupts your being. And somehow you are no longer at ease, if I may say so.
True. Because what's happening is that you know that your comfort level is here. You had a desire here. And that desire has caused you to step out of your comfort level. Although the desire fulfillment made you think that you'll be happy when you have it. And so it becomes a moving target. It's a mirage. You want to be happy. When I teach, and it doesn't matter what class I teach, I always have a session where I just talk about desire. And the reason for this is that when we talk about corruption, really, we have to understand that it is happening because of a reason. And that's why I'm saying we don't ask the question why. And I would say that corruption happens because of desire. And desire can be good or bad. In class, I talk about desire mostly to show us that it's good when you are desiring to have your degree. So you're going to work towards that. But when you are desiring to have just money, you are likely to choose any degree that has money as opposed to whether you'll be happy. So now procurement has lots of money. And you look at university enrollments, you have lots of people in procurement. And so they are driven by desire. But once they find that they are being spotlighted for having stolen money, that desire now has brought in a discomfort. That's why understanding the self, which is the point you are making, becomes the key. Because when you understand self and you love self, the most likely thing you like to do is to maintain the peace that you have already created, as opposed to allowing it to be undermined by desire. So questioning the self, in my view, is the starting point. We have corruption because of ignorance of the implication. When somebody takes lots of money has been lost in NYS or whatever organization you're thinking about, all the purpose that was intended there is not going to be fulfilled. But you are the same person who says you love your country and you love your people, and sometimes it can even affect you, but people may not care about that. And I'm saying that when we are ignorant about the implications and we don't talk about them, so people don't really latch onto what is my responsibility as a person, and the everyday language does not bring us to that point, something. We are ignorant, for example, of what is the role of money. We just think of money as an end in itself. We don't understand that money, in economic terms, it is understood as a store of value. So it serves the purpose that if I put 300 in the bank, it is actually there and it is accounted for because it is 300. That's what it's serving. But money itself doesn't exist. Money is an exchange. When I do a service, I cut you a loan and you give me money, now that's a representation of service. When you receive money from corruption, you've stolen because there's no exchange. Yeah, there's no exchange. The money just moved into your account, and now you are rich. And you see how society then participates in this. Yule jamaa ameendelea bwana. That guy is doing very well. And if you are newly hired and you are not clear what's going on, you are told bwana usikalie masikio. Yeah? Don't be quiet here. Make sure that you
do something for yourself.
Yeah.
You said, Prof, that what we may need is a leader who comes and decides we have got to go in this direction.
Yes.
But earlier you had said that it's we as a people, as a society, who have gotten to a point where we have national consensus around this evil thing that we call corruption. We call it evil, but we practice it.
Yeah.
Now, if it's so ingrained in our system, how can one person come and remove it from us?
It's absolutely not possible. In fact, my model of what would be a president who would really change this, they have to be very eclectic in the sense that they understand things in their interrelationships. You know, when I was telling you I have a BS in accounting, I'm in international relations, communication and all that, it is this ability to be able to see so many things and how they all tie together. And our weakness as a nation is that we tend to compartmentalize. You know, you look at a notebook with those squares, if you remember, like the notebook I have here.
The math one.
And you're looking at the one square and you don't even want to know how it is related to everything else. That's the tragic state that we are in, because we are assuming that, well, if I'm sorted, then I'm okay. I had an interesting case of travel one time, and my flight was overbooked, so I'm there, one of those who have been bumped, and that happens with the airlines because they know some people will be late and so on and so on. So I'm asked, how many of you were online? We told you will get some seats, and I said, there's me and these others. And somebody's tugging on my shoulder. Hey, don't worry about others, just say yourself, because they want me to get the seat. And they're doing that out of love. They're not thinking about what about everybody else. And it is this self-interest, selfishness that really blinds us from understanding the broader implication. So a president will be one who understands the need for the country's mentality to change. So the question of what happens with our radio stations, what happens with our musicians, that's where everybody comes in as opposed to one person. Everybody is participating in trying to make sure that we are all speaking the same language. So a president just pronouncing that I've decided from today on something is not going to happen, it's not going to work out because people can only be obedient. It will be the equivalent of boss is not here, so now we are chatting, you know, all relax, boss is in here, oh, you've got to look busy. You know, so this looking busy is to give that impression. In other words, we become pretenders in everyday life, and that's part of the problem. These are the kinds of things that need to be highlighted by our educational system, our church or spiritual systems, by all systems. It's like you have to soak the country into this new consciousness so that everybody feels ashamed to say that guy is doing very well.
How long do you think that would take? How long has it taken for us to have this national consensus that you call? How long would it take?
Let me answer that with a question. We saw Rwanda 1994, and people were killing each other. And today, people go to Rwanda for tours to see how well organized it is. And we might ask questions, what were the things done? Why do people come out on a Saturday to say today is cleaning day and everybody's doing that? It doesn't take too long if people are interested, because like I said earlier, it's like a switch. You turn it on, and I think most of what is happening in the country now is an attempt to switch things off. And there's even more confusion because we are at a point where we have what I'd call a divided spirit. On the one hand, I want to entertain my desire, and then there's I am fearing if I speak out, I might be eliminated. You remember during elections? Campaign. I mean, you had Gachagua saying, President, don't kill my children. You had Ruto saying, don't kill my children. Yeah. What is this? Was this simply strategy or what? Yeah. And people, citizens, have those same fears. Hey, hii mambo nazungumza bwana. You talk and you find you are dead. I say, no, you can never find you are dead, because when you are dead, you don't find. Yeah? And the point is very simple. When we realize that everybody participates in this. It even works from kindergarten and even in the family, so that people realize we have to do what is good.
I hear what you're saying, Prof, but at that point, from what I see, and I think we can have examples from around the world, really, that when such a change takes place, there always has to be somebody or a group who is on the platform of leadership that will rally the troops. That more often than not, that has to be the case, that you will not just have an organic mushrooming of change of ideas or change of thought. Even in Rwanda, it wasn't just that people were traumatized after the genocide. It was a combination of things. People were traumatized after the genocide. People saw that, yes, there has to be a change. The courts that came in and sat and took and had conversations with people, all those things were happening. But then there was a central voice that then brought all of these things together. So is there no need then for a leadership who really does understand all these things that you're talking about, that corruption does 1, 2, 3, impunity has this kind of effect on society, and if we're going to change it, it has to be everybody, because then it is through policy, it is through communication, it is through awareness then that you have the cascaded effect of all these things happening. So doesn't there need to be somebody at a group, a person at a central point of rally?
You think of it as a tree. The tree has a trunk, that's the holding part, and then all these branches have sub-branches, and everybody is playing their role because they are now soaked. If they are soaked in that understanding, the consciousness of saying we want a better country, then it works. But most times we are in postponement mode, and I think when you hear people saying, I want things to get worse so people can change. Well, the change means for people to live better. How can you be wishing for them to get worse in order for them to change? Sounds like an interesting point that when Marx says a people's consciousness is a product of their material condition. So if people are suffering, then they know what suffering is. If they are happy, then they know what happiness is, and they may be blind to the other. There's a Chinese story of a woman who's being driven home. It is snowing, and the guy who's directing the horses that are pulling the chariot sees that there's a lady freezing in that abandoned place, and he says, "Madam, do you think we should rescue that lady?" No, let's get home first, then you can come back for him. So they get home, and it's nice and warm, and "Madam, you remember that lady?" Which lady? Which lady? Because she has already forgotten about that. And I think that we are living in that world where when somebody feels so frustrated, they are telling you, I don't want to have to worry about everything. Let me just take care of my children. I'm interested in my family. And these other things are not part of the problem. We are back to the point you are raising, that we need to see that the solutions come from everybody, every sector, every institution. And this is why it is so important that whoever is in position of leadership have to really have a disciplinary approach. Somebody does something wrong, let it be highlighted, let it be a discussion even for a week in the media, so that people begin to attach shame with the property that cannot be accounted for. How many times have we had declare your wealth requirement?
Right.
And it is declared, and that's the end of the story. So there's one thing, doing something about something and creating the impression that you are doing something about something, those are two different things. When I see the boda guys and they tell me, "Hey, Professor Anjo, tulikuambia we ujui," when we are telling us that we are making mistakes, and now we realize we ametubeba ufala bwana. What would happen if you had elections today? Yangu kura haiwezi kuiona. Now I see what they are saying, but I'm sympathetic to the fact that there is still a significant ignorance, and this is the ignorance of something that is really key. To understand that when you see a square, like all these squares, you can't see just one and think when you understand it, that's enough. You need to see this square in context of the other squares. So the man who's telling you he'll never have my kura again, they are thinking they can have another alternative instead of thinking, well, right now he's been elected, the court said so, and therefore he is president. But now, if you are to help the president, what would you do? to get him to see that he could actually do a very good job if he is able to understand how all these elements play.
So like you're saying that.
But when you have just one guy who is a loyalist to you, and he tells you everything is okay except the other guys in wanafanya kelele, the president ends up thinking that I think I'm doing very well because everybody tells me so.
Yeah.
When you have the USA saying the elections were fair, the Supreme Court held that, we can say, well, that's how things work, and because that's how American stuff works, that's okay, but it doesn't apply in Kenya. You know, we have a case right now where Donald Trump is in real trouble, and it does appear that he could actually go to jail. But the idea that he's being tried itself is a big step. That's where you see the power of when things are meant to be this way, they must be this way. When light is red, it means stop, you must stop. So you can't be a leader, a president who says, we want to end corruption. But now when people have been named in corrupt practices and nothing happens, then I'm asking, so did we not say we're going to do this?
Say it?
You end up confusing your country because people don't understand what's going on. Just when 2013 new system started, I was very hopeful. Then I get to a point where I'm looking at the Auditor General reports, and they took one for Mombasa, for CIA, and other places. This was after the time when one of the counties had a wheelbarrow selling for 100 and something thousand.
110,000.
Yeah.
58.
So I was thinking, now that these reports are out for every county, shouldn't we see people going to court? Do you know right now there are cases going on, for example, in Taita County, corruption investigation for the first administration. When things are going at this pace and you are looking at people who have been given positions, you are really attempting to be the leader, but you don't have any clue that all these things need to fall together. And I think the president's advisors could be people who are very loyal and they continue to let him know that everything is going okay. But they should be the people who ask him questions. Mr. President, you said in 100 days we'll be here. How come we're not there? What should we do? What is it that we are not doing? In other words, the president would do very well if he recognized that it is people who tell him he's not doing well that are his best friends, and that the relationship should be one of not beginning to call them names and then it becomes a name-calling game. Instead, it will be a state in which, oh, tell me more. And, okay, so you say this is wrong. In your opinion, how should this be fixed? And you can take it to a family level where a child tells the father, this is not good, and he says, shut up, I'm the father here, and I don't want to hear any of that. As opposed to, I'm the father here, tell me more, where are we wrong, and so what in your opinion should be happening? Oh, as a matter of fact, why don't you call all members of the family and we can have these conversations? You're a president, every day you have your 5 minutes on your radio and tell people where we are, the things that are happening. Just like you guys read newspapers in the morning, a president ought to be that kind of person who understands, not just relying on loyalists telling you this is how things should be. So if I may summarize again, what I'm saying is, number one, we need to start looking at national issues in a very rich form, not narrow, small squares. We need to be citizens who understand how things are interconnected. Because your actions then teach you to know that if I do this, things will go wrong. We need to be citizens who recognize that my brother has been named in corruption. I am not going to be the same person who is going to look for who's trying the case so we can tell him to be nice to him. We should be the people say, this is shameful. I'm ashamed of my brother's act. I want to apologize on behalf of the family for doing that. But this is so ingrained, and I'll give you a case of a parent who's called by police. Your child is here. We caught them wakivuta bangi or whatever the story will be. And he says, Officer, unajua huyu kijana, he's a good boy, lakini it is his friends. Yeah?
Yule was so and so, ndio.
So now they provide a little bit of warm hand greasing, and the kid goes home, and as the father is driving, he's looking at the rear view and telling his son at the back, he didn't even allow him to sit at the front because he's so angry. When are you going to learn your lessons? How many times shall I tell you this? And you have parents who always start with their sentence with how many times?
How many times?
How many times shall I tell you this? And if the kid was talking at the back, honestly, I think what he would say is, Dad, you know, I'm going to learn my lessons, but you just took me out of the classroom. Yeah, you just took me out of the classroom. So the
You should have let me stay.
yeah.
Prof, we thank you very much for joining us. Professor Ngure Mwachofi, consultant, a retired associate professor. He's also a musician. He's carrying a guitar. We don't have actually time, and you could have done that.
That's okay.
Quick.
We don't have to.
Next time, huh?
Yeah.
Next time. Well, thank you very much for joining us today.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.